Welcome to the Data Product Management in Action podcast, created and executive produced by me, Scott Hirleman, and brought to you by Soda, your best friend in data quality and contracts tooling. We created this podcast to serve as a place for actual practitioners bringing product management practices to data, whether that is to AI and ML, data products, platforms, or everything else in data, right? And it's to dig into the nitty-gritty of product management in data, but in fun and dynamic conversations. It's not just lift and shift from software product management. We have a great set of hosts for you that are also practitioners, so they can really get into those specifics and dive deep and get you the information you want to know rather than just high level, here is what a data product is. This is about cutting through the noise of data product management to drive towards actionable insights, hence the actual podcast name, Data Product Management in Action. So sit back and enjoy another awesome conversation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Data Product Management in Action podcast. I'm your host, Frannie Helforoush, and today we are going to have a very interesting episode with Corrin Sholomo Goldenberg. Corrin is a senior product manager, and she has an amazing story about how she built the whole data platform where there were no platform, no best practices, and no data product before. I will let her introduce herself and get to the whole story. Welcome to the podcast, Corrin.
Thank you, Frannie. Thank you for having me. So I'm going to give a short introduction about myself. I've been in tech for over 15 years. I've held various positions before I came to product management. So I was a data analyst and a product manager and a product owner. And I really love to try out new things. So I moved between industries because I wanted to try out as many things as I can. So I did marketing technology and broadcasting and fintech and IT operations. But I've always loved data. So in every position I held, I was always poke around in databases. I would always try to find insights with the data, even when it wasn't like my job description, quote unquote. I even did a master's degree in epidemiology and public health, which is something that has a lot of data in it. So that's something that, I just did that for fun, but it was a lot of interesting things to learn. So thank you for having me again.
We are very excited to have you. Thank you so much for the introduction. I know you built a data platform in a company that there was no data platform before. Can you first define data platform so we can all get to, one at the same page, and then we'll get into your story?
Sure. So to me, when I say there was no data platform when I joined the company, it means that there was no proper way to see all of the data, or there's no proper way to answer all of the questions that product managers and senior management and everybody in the company wanted to ask, as well as customers. But that was like the second problem. So we did have data, and we had analytics for customers on top of that, but it was very, very limited. And when I say data platform, I mean a robust platform that includes everything from data ingestion to normalization and curation of the data, but something that actually includes all of the data that you would want to see as a product manager and as a senior member of the company. So when I joined Big Panda, the CPO actually asked me to analyze the data flow in the company. And I found out that, again, there's no real data platform. So there was like this one database, as I said, it was on Redshift, and it was just for external analytics. And if all of our service map is around within the product itself was around like 80 services, the data, we're actually collecting data from maybe 10% of that. And we were essentially blind to a lot of data. So I came back and said, well, we have a problem. We can't answer a lot of questions that product managers need to want to ask and management wanted to ask. We couldn't answer questions around value and context, and like even customers configure things in the product. We couldn't really see that. And we had an ML team at the time, but they didn't have no proper infrastructure. So they had to create their own infrastructure. There's no one place where you have all of the data in a way that everyone in the company can use that. So when I say the data platform, it means You can use that for internal analytics. You can use that for external analytics. You can use that for AI. You can use that for all kinds of purposes. And we didn't really have that at the time. So that would be my proper definition.
That great. Okay. So we'll get into your story. So you started in a company and then you analyze the data flow and then you realize that there's no data platform. So what happened next? How did you go around it?
Oh, that was, it was tricky. I was maybe 3 weeks into the company when the CPO asked me to do that analysis. And, it took me like maybe a month to talk to a bunch of folks and try to analyze everything that we have. And I came back and I said, we need a proper platform. And the CPO essentially said, well, just go do it, go build it. But there was no development team. There was like nobody, it was just me. And so what I did at that stage is I decided to take a few folks. We created a task force. We called ourselves Data Force because we're like data geeks. And we started working. So I had someone from DevOps and I had a few developers. And because I'm a product management manager, and usually data platforms at this stage aren't built by product managers, they're built by technical teams, because it's very much infrastructure. And so, we had discussions around how do you start? How do you build a product? And because I'm coming from a product manager background, then I said, well, what we actually need to do is find the most valuable use case that we want to start with, and let's start with that. So that's what we did. I didn't want to just ingest all of the data that we have and then figure out what to do with it later, which was an approach by some folks at the time. I said, no, let's try to find out what is the most valuable use case now. And at the time, the company wanted to transition to a new business model. Our old business model at the time was just essentially build a customer based on like a predefined sum that you agreed when you signed the contract. We wanted to change the business model to something that was consumption-based. So we wanted to build the customers based on how much data they actually sent us. And for that, we actually needed data. So how much data they sent us and then how many actions they took within the product. We didn't really have that data, not in a way that finance can analyze that, not in a way that account managers can talk to the customer and tell them how much they've used, and definitely not in a way that we can show customers. And because I knew that was coming, I knew that was something that's, that we wanted to transition to, and we didn't have that data. It sounded like the perfect use case to start with. And that's the use. And I've asked to start with that use case. So when I started building this with them, it was still a task force. There was no actual team at the time. And we started building all of our infrastructure with this use case in mind. So we wanted to bring value as fast as we can to management. So we wanted to show them, this is what we see. So this is the amount of data the customers are sending to us. This is the amount of actions that they're taking within the product. And we wanted to do that very quickly so we can show them value. And so we started with like just the first piece, how much data our customers are sending us. As soon as we had that in place, we put it on a graph. So if you don't show it on a graph, it doesn't exist. No one knows. So we put it on a graph and we joined a management meeting. And the first thing I tried to find was like an insight. Do we have a customer where something changed? And I found one customer that was sending us like a few million events per day. And then they, in like the week before that meeting, they moved to sending us like a few 10,000s of events per day. Which was a huge change for us. So I showed that in the management meeting that, well, if you look at this customers, you can see a very clear drop in the amount of data that they send us. And like there was panic in the room. Who was a very important customer. And so that's when that was a good way to like create buy-in from management. So they saw the data, they saw that we could deliver it. They saw that we can actually transition to the new business model because we will have that data, but also it was a way to kind of visualize how important that data is. And that's how we started. That was the first use case. After that, I just built it the same way. So I found the next best use case and then continued to build the platform around use cases. So on one hand, you build infrastructure, so you could have all of the data moving forward. But then on the other hand, you actually deliver something to the field. And the field can be management, and it can be account executives, and it can be customers. But I was always trying to create value every like all the time. So regardless of what I was trying to build on the infrastructure side, I was always trying to deliver value as well. So it would be very, very clear what we're doing on one hand, but on the other hand, you're still building the actual infrastructure.
This is so awesome. I really like it that first of all, you use lots of your product experience and lots of like product mindset and best practices into building something totally from scratch. You use, use case analysis, happy path, and everything. And you also added the whole business model, like future business model, into the whole calculation, which is very valuable. And then, of course, on top of everything, you kept the value in mind. And that was the product side. And from the data side, you also change data to insights in a way, right? So
right.
It's great that you had all of these layers on top of one another to have the full piece of the cake. That analogy that we have on the MVPs, that you have to have all the layers of the cake, right?
Right.
That is the exact example of it. I really love it. But how did you do how did you have that scaling in mind when you built piece by piece? How did you have the full depth and not having to go back and do something that you forgot when you want to build the next piece? How did you have that in mind from the beginning?
Yeah, that's a good question. We had a lot of discussions when we started, a lot of discussions around tools. So which tools are you going to use? Because when you build something from scratch, especially if it's a data infrastructure, then you need to decide what is your data warehouse going to be, what is your ingestion tool going to be, what is your modeling tool going to be. And so it was me and the task force. And then once we got buy-in from management, I actually got a development team. And so we had a lot of back and forth discussions. So we wanted to go for the data warehouse piece. We wanted to go with, a very big player in the market. We actually started with Databricks, and that because of at the time, they had more support for like ML and AI than Snowflake. We did transition from Databricks to Snowflake very quickly because with Snowflake is just a bit easier to use. So you just need to know SQL. Databricks is a little bit more difficult, and you need to know Spark. And there were other members of the company that wanted to, not at the time, not just when we started, but they did want to be using the data platform moving forward. And so we wanted to make sure that we created a platform that is easy to use for everybody. And we knew Snowflake is very, widely used, very scalable. So that's the tool we wanted to start with. For the other tools that we started with, to make sure that they are something that we could use moving forward, even when we do have a larger platform, we started with tools that are more managed. So our ingestion tool was actually a tool that was 100% managed. And we started with that because when we were just a task force, so folks that were doing, their normal job and then doing the data platform on the side, we wanted to make sure that they can do things very, very quickly. So we started with a managed tool, and we didn't know if it would be able to scale to whatever we wanted to get to, but we said we can start with that, and then when we have a proper team, then we can move to Snowpipe or to any other ingestion tool that may work for us moving forward. So it was essentially when we just started, it was a matter of choosing something that not necessarily will scale, but could make us run faster. I think we were very lucky. Not just lucky because we did research it, but we were lucky as well in terms of the managed tool that we chose were in fact scalable. and we could actually use it moving forward. For our modeling, we use DBT, which is, again, something that is widely used, but we built it in a way that is actually very easy to use. So we built the infrastructure in a way that every developer that knows a little bit of data can actually go in and create models, so create like curated tables. And so, again, we knew DBT is a good tool to use. And I think the basic thing that was, if you talk about scale, the basic tool that would be critical here would be Snowflake. And we knew, I worked with Snowflake. A lot of other folks in the company worked with Snowflake at the time. So we knew that we don't really have to worry about it for scalability.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for the answer. So what type of KPI you defined in the beginning? How did you want to make sure that you're following some KPIs from the beginning?
Yeah. So KPIs is something, again, in product, it's something that, we define all the time. But when I just started the data platform, it was a little hard to define KPIs, because the KPIs that I had in mind was, I just need to be able to answer basic questions. I cannot answer these questions now without working for 3 days to try to find the data somewhere. That was like my initial thought. My initial thought was, let's make sure we have all the answers that we need to. And so we started with like something that's a little bit more qualitative than quantitative. So like, can we answer these questions? But then as the platform progressed, we could actually define like more quantitative KPIs, which were things around like monthly active users on our BI side. We could see how many people actually access Snowflake and run queries. And so those are I had to separate the KPIs between the data platform and the BI. So for the BI, it was more important to see like the analytics on top of my data platform. It was more important to see like how many external users I have that are using it. And then internally, I would see like how many users are actually accessing the data platform. I did have more specific KPIs around features or specific things that we developed. So I was working a lot with other product managers. So if they developed a new feature and that needed our help with that. So it was more around how do I make sure that their KPIs are met using the data platform. But yeah, I think when you do build an infrastructure, then it's something around, it's something that's I would say a little harder to define, but I looked at it as more like, if someone asks a question, are they able to get the answer to that question? And then we would define it like team by team based on the other product managers and the questions that they wanted to answer. So yeah, that's how I looked at it when we started.
I'm curious, what was a couple of examples about your qualitative KPI?
The qualitative KPIs? So again, as I said, like things around, can I answer? When I started, I had a list of questions that we couldn't answer. And so as I moved forward with the data platform, it was more around, can I start answering these questions now? And then most of the questions were quantitative, but I wanted to see what is a percentage of things that I can answer. If we're talking about like, product managers came to me at the time and said, when a customer defines configurations within our product, we don't see it. Like we can't see how many times this customer defined like something new. We don't have that data. And so data on configurations, that's like a qualitative question. If I'm looking at it, like how many configurations is already like the quantity side. But I wanted to make sure, like, can I answer like these types of questions even to start with? And yeah, so that would be an example.
Okay. Yeah, that is actually very, very interesting to how to define your KPIs. I think you mentioned it a lot of times about your North Star, but I just wanted to clarify that did you have your North Star from the beginning, like the ultimate goal, or it just came later on during the process?
So my vision for the platform itself, as I said, was like I wanted to make sure that we can answer questions. My vision for the BI side, so it's like, how is this data being used in practice? I started to measure that right away. So we already, as I said, we already had analytics with customers, but it was very limited. So customers could go in and see their own analytics within our product, but it was fairly limited. And so that's something that I started to measure immediately, because it's something very easy, like monthly active users, how many are using the analytics side, something that, you can measure right away, and that's pretty easy. The data platform was the trickiest part, but again, my North Star, or like my vision for for measuring this, was like, can I answer all of these questions? And then, it did take us around 2 years to be able to answer all of the questions we wanted to. So it took a little while, but as I said, we gave value along the way. So it wasn't like, people had to wait for 2 years in order to get these answers. Like all of these.
That still looks amazing to me. 2 years. 2 years is good. Don't worry about it.
I know.
Okay. How did you measure your success at the end?
That's a good question. It's not always easy, I would say. I mean, as product managers in general, but especially product managers in data. It's not always easy because you feel like you're an infrastructure, and you feel like you do give value in BI and what you're showing customers. But it's sometimes hard to measure success. I looked at it in different ways. One was the company wanted to transition to a new business model, and we were able to support that very quickly with data. And that new business model, it's not new now, but at the time it was new. That new business model is already over 25% of the company's ARR today. So to me, that is a success because we were able to, change the mindset of the company, change the business model, and then have, all of these customers that took that route based on our data. So we use that data for finance. We use that data to show the customer. And that's to me, that's one success. And we couldn't really do that without data because you can't really charge the customer without showing them what you're charging them for. And then the other success that I see is was I able to show the data to all of the stakeholders within the company? So we were able to, in the 2 years that we did this, we were able to show value to management, show value to account executives, support professional services with all of the things that they're doing for the customers. We're able to support product managers. So now they have the data around, their area of the product, but they now have the data because I was able to provide it to them. So I measured it as when I started, there was nothing. And then when we finished, we had so many things that, so much visibility that the company didn't have, which was, it was just game changing around the way we do business.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of ROI of business model changes that was directly related to the whole change and the data platform and everything, which is thanks to you and your product team for sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
So last question, a lesson learned from everything. So no, I honestly want to know that what have you learned from starting something from scratch? Because this is so different than continuing on top of everything that is built before, or having a new feature adding to already existing products or something. You started everything from scratch. You started from analysis everything and then coming with a problem statement and trying to solve that step by step. So what was the most important lesson that you learned from everything that you did?
Yeah. So First of all, building something from scratch is amazing. You just learn everything. When we started the data platform, so I did everything at the beginning because we're like the small task force. I was doing things that are, product management related, non-product management related. Like you just do everything. It's like a startup. So you just have to do things. And I think a lot of B2B companies are like, they don't really have proper data. I talk to a lot of product managers and we don't really have, like a lot of companies are in the same state that we were. So there wasn't really a lot of data. And to me, this was an opportunity to really start something from scratch, but that will benefit the company like so much. So lessons learned is if you see something that is needed, try to get buy-in from management. I think this is something that is like just go do it. I guess that's my that's the way that I wanted to that I would frame this. So it's when I started the data platform, so we did like the first use case, and then like probably 10 people came back to me and said, I've been here for 3 years and I've been saying that we need a data platform. And I said, well, why didn't you build it? Because like no one, I mean, I didn't come in to build a data platform when I joined Big Panda. It was like I joined in and at the time product management managers joined, and then they said, well, do the onboarding and then we'll see like which team you want to join, which team needs you. And like there were many openings. But because of this analysis that I did, and I said, well, sure, I'll go build this. Then, and I did it. It was hard as hell, but it was so worth it. And the lesson learned from it is like, just like, I know it's Nike, but like, just do it. If you see something that's needed, then just go do it.
Yeah, exactly. Any final recommendation for the people other than just go and do it for the people that may be in the same boat?
Yeah. So I would say, again, just do it. And then talk to people. I joined at some point. I joined like last year a product guild that is like once a week. A few product managers like meet together. There was like a moderator that we were talking to, and I realized how many people are in the same boat as like they're in a B2B company. They don't really have the data, and they're struggling with the same issues that I were. So I was able to help them. And then I was able to learn a lot from them also around like how do they do planning and like things that, I was doing, but they gave me a lot of insights on that. So just talk to as many people as you can, especially PMs in your field, not necessarily in the same, like if you're in finance, not necessarily someone from finance, but just like if you're a B2B company, talk to someone from B2B. I would say this has helped me a lot. And as I said, management is critical. So visualize everything. If you want management to join, like to actually be in the journey with you, visualize everything and make sure everybody understands the value of what you're building, because that's the most important thing in product, but especially in data products.
Oh yeah, for sure. That is a great advice. Thank you so much, Corrin, for joining us today and sharing your story. That is truly amazing what you did there. I'm pretty sure you helped a lot of people. You helped a lot of processes and, a lot of gain for the company. And hopefully our audience also got a couple of things and a couple of ideas from you. And they can find you on LinkedIn for sure. We will share your LinkedIn profile on the episode's information. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Frannie, for inviting me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you got some great actionable insights out of this episode. We're so excited to dig deeper into data product management and its many facets. If you want to engage more with the show, you can follow us on LinkedIn and check out Soda's website at soda.io for more related content around product management in data. And if you are a practitioner bringing product management practices to data and want to potentially be a guest, please check the show notes for a link to apply. And as always, we strongly encourage people from underrepresented groups in tech to apply. Much as I'm a handsome devil, we don't want all our guests only looking like me. So again, let's get excited for more digging into data product management in action.